Achim Weick is the founder and CEO of EQS Group. With a clear vision and a remarkable passion, he has led EQS Group to become what it is today, one of the leading European cloud providers for corporate compliance and investor relations. As the initiator of ECEC, Achim is realizing two of his passions: building a European network of professionals who are driven to make positive impact on the society and the planet, and reinforcing his undying belief that trust is the basis of every good relationship. He believes the will to create positive change is inherent in every one of us. It is only when we come together as a community to put trust and the greater good in the forefront that we pave way for a more sustainable future for generations to come.
It's a great pleasure to welcome the European Compliance and Ethics community to the ECEC 2022. While the topics at the ECEC have proven far-reaching and diverse over the years, compliance and ethics have always been the beating heart of our community. This year, the central theme of our conference is whether we are living in a world forced to be good. While trust acts as the cornerstone of a good and honest world, it is also important to examine the role played by integrity and resilience, and whether they should be leveraged more. To be clear, we have taken on enormous debt that we must pay back. Debt to the environment and to society. Nobody likes paying off debt. This requires insight and pressure, and it means we need both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation to make the world a better place. Let's start with intrinsic motivation. One of my favorite principles is have integrity and demand it from others. I've always been a passionate advocate for the right values and a healthy corporate culture where transparency and integrity are utilized to create the most important corporate capital: trust. It is one of the most powerful assets available to businesses today, holding relationships together, lowering risk, boosting brand power, and building long-lasting reputations. However, I'm also a strong believer in regulation. Regulatory requirements can protect the environment, workers, and consumers, while simultaneously boosting innovation, productivity, and value. New green regulations, particularly in Europe, are introducing strict reporting standards to create common baselines for disclosures across industries that will hold companies accountable if they fail to turn their net zero pledges into consistent results. Imminent global ESG standards will be instrumental to put an end to a lack of environmental accountability. While many large companies already set goals for sustainability and publish ESG data, a lack of regulation and scrutiny has allowed some organizations to appear more proactive than they are in reality. We've seen what the use of sustainability labels, certifications, and services as a marketing tactic can lead to: deceptive greenwashing. So while some companies are intrinsically motivated to act and behave as role models by embracing the right values based on strong corporate culture, others have their good behavior driven by regulations. However, more factors are at play and forces are converging to push companies. Alongside political willpower, external and internal stakeholders are having a huge influence on companies today. Whether it's fighting climate change, upholding human rights, or protecting whistleblowers, corporate boards and leaders are under tremendous pressure to prove they are well equipped to pursue sustainable strategies. Otherwise, they will be out of business sooner or later. Let's look at the developments since last year's ECEC. Unfortunately, there have been a number of negative developments around the world since last year. The war against Ukraine, energy crisis, the collapse of global supply chains, and the rampant inflation. In a period of profound uncertainty, many companies are staying cautious with their budgets and avoiding any commitments they deem unnecessary, such as a cultural overhaul or a new environmental approach. On the other hand, in our experience at EQS Group, intrinsic motivation has increased in many organizations. High-profile companies are jumping on the environmental bandwagon since the start of this year. Companies like Aston Martin, Budweiser, Patagonia, Mars, or Volkswagen were announcing ambitious targets and social initiatives. For example, just last month, Samsung announced a plan to tackle climate change by achieving enterprise-wide net zero carbon emissions using more renewable energy and investing in new technologies. And according to Bloomberg, more than $41 trillion will flow into ESG investing this year. With regards to regulation, we've all been disappointed by the pace of the rollout of the EU whistleblowing directive across Europe since last year's ECEC. Only one country met the deadline, and that's Denmark. However, so far in 2022, the law has been adopted in 10 member states, including France, and with the German transposition imminent, noticeable progress is now finally being made. By the end of this year, whistleblowers in Europe will be much better protected and companies will minimize their risk for misconduct. On a brighter note, I welcome the growing attention paid to global supply chains. In Germany, the corporate due diligence obligations in supply chains lays out clear guidance and legal certainty for companies on how to respect human rights. And in February, the European Commission also presented a proposal for a law on corporate sustainability obligations, the so-called EU supply chain law. This will require companies to identify and, where necessary, prevent or mitigate the adverse impacts of their activities on human rights, such as child labor, work exploitation, or biodiversity loss. So my conclusion, I firmly believe in the importance of regulation in driving companies to do good. Given soaring environmental and social awareness, however, companies are also taking action regardless, either due to stakeholder pressure or because of their own foresight and good intentions. Author Douglas B. Reeves remarked, "Sustainable change, after all, depends not upon compliance with external mandates or blind adherence to regulation, but rather upon the pursuit of the greater good." However, we have to ask ourselves, with the clock ticking, are external mandates now essential to force companies to act for the sake of humanity and the planet? Does the world need to be forced to be good? Let's discuss the latest developments at this year's ECEC. Be inspired by the many top-class keynotes, breakout sessions, and the compliance pioneers of the ECEC